Hello, dear wanderers. I'm Phoenix, and tonight we begin a quiet walk through the misty hills of Celtic folklore and myth. Together, we'll meet ancient gods, wandering spirits, and brave souls whose names were carried by the wind. So get comfortable, rest easy, and let these timeless tales from the Celtic past guide you gently into sleep. And before you drift off, leave me a little note in the comments. Tell me what time it is where you are and where in the world you're listening from. The Shee and Gannon was born in the morning, named at noon, and went in the evening to ask his daughter of the king of Erin. "I will give you my daughter in marriage," said the king of Erin. "You won't get her, though, unless you go and bring me back the tidings that I want, and tell me what it is that put a stop to the laughing of the Gruagach Gaire, who before this laughed always, and laughed so loud that the whole world heard him. There are 12 iron spikes out here in the garden behind my castle. On 11 of the spikes are the heads of kings' sons who came seeking my daughter in marriage, and all of them went away to get the knowledge I wanted. Not one was able to get it and tell me what stopped the Gruagach Gaire from laughing. I took the heads off them all when they came back without the tidings for which they went, and I'm greatly in dread that your head'll be on the 12th spike. For I'll do the same to you that I did to the 11 kings' sons, unless you tell what put a stop to the laughing of the Gruagach." The Shee and Gannon made no answer, but left the king and pushed away to know could he find why the Gruagach was silent. He took a glen at a step, a hill at a leap, and traveled all day till evening. Then he came to a house. The master of the house asked him what sort was he, and he said, "A young man looking for hire." "Well," said the master of the house, "I was going tomorrow to look for a man to mind my cows. If you'll work for me, you'll have a good place, the best food a man could have to eat in this world, and a soft bed to lie on." The Shee and Gannon took service and ate his supper. Then the master of the house said, "I am the Gruagach Gaire. Now that you are my man and have eaten your supper, you'll have a bed of silk to sleep on." Next morning after breakfast, the Gruagach said to the Shee and Gannon, "Go out now and loosen my 5 golden cows and my bull without horns, and drive them to pasture. But when you have them out on the grass, be careful you don't let them go near the land of the giant." The new cowboy drove the cattle to pasture, and when near the land of the giant, he saw it was covered with woods and surrounded by a high wall. He went up, put his back against the wall, and threw in a great stretch of it. Then he went inside and threw out another great stretch of the wall, and put the 5 golden cows and the bull without horns on the land of the giant. Then he climbed a tree, ate the sweet apples himself, and threw the sour ones down to the cattle of the Gruagach Gaire. Soon a great crashing was heard in the woods, the noise of young trees bending and the old trees breaking. The cowboy looked around and saw a 5-headed giant pushing through the trees, and soon he was before him. "Poor miserable creature," said the giant. "But weren't you impudent to come to my land and trouble me in this way? You're too big for 1 bite and too small for 2. I don't know what to do but tear you to pieces." "You nasty brute," said the cowboy, coming down to him from the tree. "'Tis little I care for you." And then they went at each other. So great was the noise between them that there was nothing in the world but what was looking on and listening to the combat. They fought till late in the afternoon, when the giant was getting the upper hand, and then the cowboy thought that if the giant should kill him, his father and mother would never find him or set eyes on him again, and he would never get the daughter of the king of Erin. The heart in his body grew strong at this thought. He sprang on the giant, and with the first squeeze and thrust, he put him to his knees in the hard ground, with the second thrust to his waist, and with the third to his shoulders. "I have you at last. You're done for now." "Zrania," said the cowboy. Then he took out his knife, cut the 5 heads off the giant, and when he had them off, he cut out the tongues and threw the heads over the wall. Then he put the tongues in his pocket and drove home the cattle. That evening the Gruagach couldn't find vessels enough in all his place to hold the milk of the 5 golden cows. But when the cowboy was on the way home with the cattle, the son of the king of Tissian came and took the giant's heads and claimed the princess in marriage when the Gruagach Gaire should laugh. After supper, the cowboy would give no talk to his master, but kept his mind to himself and went to the bed of silk to sleep. On the morning, the cowboy rose before his master, and the first words he said to the Gruagach were, "What keeps you from laughing, you who used to laugh so loud that the whole world heard you?" "I'm sorry," said the Gruagach, "that the daughter of the king of Erin sent you here. If you don't tell me of your own will, I'll make you tell me," said the cowboy. And he put a face on himself that was terrible to look at, and running through the house like a madman, could find nothing that would give pain enough to the Gruagach but some ropes made of untanned sheepskin hanging on the wall. He took these down, caught the Gruagach, fastened him by the 3 smalls, and tied him so that his little toes were whispering to his ears. When he was in this state, the Gruagach said, "I'll tell you what stopped my laughing if you set me free." So the cowboy unbound him. The 2 sat down together, and the Gruagach said, "I lived in this castle here with my 12 sons. We ate, drank, played cards, and enjoyed ourselves, till one day when my sons and I were playing, a slender brown hare came rushing in, jumped onto the hearth, tossed up the ashes to the rafters, and ran away. On another day he came again, but if he did, we were ready for him, my 12 sons and myself. As soon as he tossed up the ashes and ran off, we made after him and followed him till nightfall, when he went into a glen. We saw a light before us. I ran on and came to a house with a great apartment, where there was a man named Yellowface with 12 daughters, and the hare was tied to the side of the room near the women. There was a large pot over the fire in the room, and a great stork boiling in the pot. The man of the house said to me, "There are bundles of rushes at the end of the room. Go there and sit down with your men." He went into the next room and brought out 2 pikes, one of wood, the other of iron, and asked me which of the pikes would I take. I said, "I'll take the iron one," for I thought in my heart that if an attack should come on me, I could defend myself better with the iron than the wooden pike. Yellowface gave me the iron pike, and the first chance of taking what I could out of the pot on the point of the pike. I got but a small piece of the stork, and the man of the house took all the rest on his wooden pike. We had to fast that night, and when the man and his 12 daughters ate the flesh of the stork, They hurled the bare bones in the faces of my sons and myself. We had to stop all night that way, beaten on the faces by the bones of the stork. Next morning, when we were going away, the man of the house asked me to stay a while, and going into the next room, he brought out 12 loops of iron and one of wood, and said to me, "Put the heads of your 12 sons into the iron loops, or your own head into the wooden one." And I said, "I'll put the 12 heads of my sons in the iron loops, and keep my own out of the wooden one." He put the iron loops on the necks of my 12 sons, and put the wooden one on his own neck. Then he snapped the loops one after another, till he took the heads off my 12 sons, and threw the heads and bodies out of the house. But he did nothing to hurt his own neck. When he had killed my sons, he took hold of me, and stripped the skin and flesh from the small of my back down. And when he had done that, he took the skin of a black sheep that had been hanging on the wall for 7 years, and clapped it on my body in place of my own flesh and skin. And the sheepskin grew on me, and every year since then I shear myself, and every bit of wool I use for the stockings that I wear, I clip off my own back. When he had said this, the Gruagach showed the cowboy his back covered with thick black wool. After what he had seen and heard, the cowboy said, "I know now why you don't laugh, and small blame to you. But does that hare come here still?" "He does indeed," said the Gruagach. Both went to the table to play, and they were not long playing cards when the hare ran in, and before they could stop him, he was out again. But the cowboy made after the hare, and the Gruagach after the cowboy, and they ran as fast as ever their legs could carry them till nightfall. And when the hare was entering the castle where the 12 sons of the Gruagach were killed, the cowboy caught him by the 2 hind legs, and dashed out his brains against the wall. And the skull of the hare was knocked into the chief room of the castle, and fell at the feet of the master of the place. "Who has dared to interfere with my fighting pet?" screamed Yellowface. "I," said the cowboy, "and if your pet had had manners, he might be alive now." The cowboy and the Gruagach stood by the fire. A stork was boiling in the pot, as when the Gruagach came the first time. The master of the house went into the next room and brought out an iron and a wooden pike, and asked the cowboy which would he choose. "I'll take the wooden one," said the cowboy, "and you may keep the iron one for yourself." So he took the wooden one, and going to the pot, brought out on the pike all the stork except a small bite. And he and the Gruagach fell to eating, and they were eating the flesh of the stork all night. The cowboy and the Gruagach were at home in the place that time. In the morning, the master of the house went into the next room, took down the 12 iron loops with a wooden one, brought them out, and asked the cowboy which would he take, the 12 iron or the 1 wooden loop. "What could I do with the 12 iron ones for myself or my master? I'll take the wooden one." He put it on, and taking the 12 iron loops, put them on the necks of the 12 daughters of the house, then snapped the 12 heads off them, and turning to their father said, "I'll do the same thing to you, unless you bring the 12 sons of my master to life, and make them as well and strong as when you took their heads." The master of the house went out and brought the 12 to life again. And when the Gruagach saw all his sons alive, and as well as ever, he let a laugh out of himself, and all the eastern world heard the laugh. Then the cowboy said to the Gruagach, "It's a bad thing you have done to me, for the daughter of the king of Erin will be married the day after your laugh is heard." "Oh, then we must be there in time," said the Gruagach, and they all made away from the place as fast as ever they could, the cowboy, the Gruagach, and his 12 sons. They hurried on, and when within 3 miles of the king's castle, there was such a throng of people that no one could go a step ahead. "We must clear a road through this," said the cowboy. "We must indeed," said the Gruagach, and at it they went, through the people, some on one side and some on the other, and soon they had an opening for themselves to the king's castle. As they went in, the daughter of the king of Erin and the son of the king of Tisean were on their knees just going to be married. The cowboy drew his hand on the bridegroom and gave a blow that sent him spinning till he stopped under a table at the other side of the room. "What scoundrel struck that blow?" asked the king of Erin. "It was I," said the cowboy. "What reason had you to strike the man who won my daughter?" "It was I who won your daughter, not he. And if you don't believe me, the Gruagach Gaire is here himself. He'll tell you the whole story from beginning to end, and show you the tongues of the giant." So the Gruagach came up and told the king the whole story, how the Shee and Gannon had become his cowboy, had guarded the 5 golden cows and the bull without horns, cut off the heads of the 5-headed giant, killed the wizard hare, and brought his own 12 sons to life. "And then," said the Gruagach, "he is the only man in the whole world I have ever told why I stopped laughing, and the only one who has ever seen my fleece of wool." When the king of Erin heard what the Gruagach said, and saw the tongues of the giant fitted in the head, he made the Shee and Gannon kneel down by his daughter, and they were married on the spot. Then the son of the king of Tisean was thrown into prison, and the next day they put down a great fire, and the deceiver was burned to ashes. The wedding lasted 9 days, and the last day was better than the first. The Battle of the Birds. I will tell you a story about the wren. There was once a farmer who was seeking a servant, and the wren met him and said, "What are you seeking?" "I am seeking a servant," said the farmer to the wren. "Will you take me?" said the wren. You poor creature, what good would you do?" "Try me," said the wren. So he engaged him, and the first work he set him to do was threshing in the barn. The wren threshed. What did he thresh with? Why, a flail, to be sure, and he knocked off 1 grain. A mouse came out, and she eats that. "I'll trouble you not to do that again," said the wren. He struck again, and he struck off 2 grains. Out came the mouse, and she eats them. So they arranged a contest to see who was strongest, and the wren brings his 12 birds, and the mouse her tribe. "You have your tribe with you," said the wren. "As well as yourself," said the mouse, and she struck out her leg proudly. But the wren broke it with his flail, and there was a pitched battle on a set day. When every creature and bird was gathering to battle, the son of the king of Tethertown said that he would go to see the battle, and that he would bring sure word home to his father, the king, who would be king of the creatures this year. The battle was over before he arrived all but 1 fight, between a great black raven and a snake. The snake was twined about the raven's neck, and the raven held the snake's throat in his beak, and it seemed as if the snake would get the victory over the raven. When the king's son saw this, he helped the raven, and with one blow takes the head off the snake. When the raven had taken breath and saw that the snake was dead, he said, "For thy kindness to me this day, I will give thee a sight. Come up now on the root of my 2 wings." The king's son put his hands about the raven before his wings, and before he stopped, he took him over 9 bens and 9 glens and 9 mountain moors. "Now," said the raven, "see you that house yonder? Go now to it. It is a sister of mine that makes her dwelling in it, and I will go bail that you are welcome. And if she asks you, were you at the battle of the birds? Say you were. And if she asks, did you see anyone like me? Say you did, but be sure that you meet me tomorrow morning here, in this place." The king's son got good and right good treatment that night. Meat of each meat, drink of each drink, warm water to his feet, and a soft bed for his limbs. On the next day, the raven gave him the same sight, over 6 bens, and 6 glens, and 6 mountain moors. They saw a bothy far off, but though far off, they were soon there. He got good treatment this night as before, plenty of meat and drink and warm water to his feet, and a soft bed to his limbs. And on the next day it was the same thing, over 3 bens and 3 glens, and 3 mountain moors. On the 3rd morning, instead of seeing the raven as at the other times, who should meet him but the handsomest lad he ever saw, with gold rings in his hair, with a bundle in his hand. The king's son asked this lad if he had seen a big black raven. Said the lad to him, "You will never see the raven again, for I am that raven. I was put under spells by a bad druid. It was meeting you that loosed me, and for that you shall get this bundle. Now," said the lad, "you must turn back on the self-same steps, and lie a night in each house as before, but you must not loose the bundle which I gave ye, till in the place where you would most wish to dwell." The king's son turned his back to the lad, and his face to his father's house, and he got lodging from the raven's sisters, just as he got it when going forward. When he was nearing his father's house, he was going through a close wood. It seemed to him that the bundle was growing heavy, and he thought he would look what was in it. When he loosed the bundle, he was astonished. In a twinkling, he sees the very grandest place he ever saw, a great castle and an orchard about the castle, in which was every kind of fruit and herb. He stood full of wonder and regret for having loosed the bundle, for it was not in his power to put it back again, and he would have wished this pretty place to be in the pretty little green hollow that was opposite his father's house. But he looked up and saw a great giant coming towards him. "Bad's the place where you have built the house, king's son," says the giant. "Yes, but it is not here I would wish it to be, though it happens to be here by mishap," says the king's son. "What's the reward for putting it back in the bundle as it was before?" "What's the reward you would ask?" says the king's son. "That you will give me the first son you have, when he is 7 years of age," says the giant. "If I have a son, you shall have him," said the king's son. In a twinkling, the giant put each garden and orchard and castle in the bundle as they were before. "Now," says the giant, "take your own road, and I will take mine. But mind your promise, and if you forget, I will remember." The king's son took to the road, and at the end of a few days, he reached the place he was fondest of. He loosed the bundle, and the castle was just as it was before, and when he opened the castle door, he sees the handsomest maiden he ever cast eye upon. "Advance, king's son," said the pretty maid. "Everything is in order for you, if you will marry me this very day." "It's I that am willing," said the king's son, and on the same day they married. But at the end of a day and 7 years, who should be seen coming to the castle but the giant? The king's son was reminded of his promise to the giant. Until now he had not told his promise to the queen. "Leave the matter between me and the giant," says the queen. "Turn out your son," says the giant. "Mind your promise." "You shall have him," says the king, "when his mother puts him in order for his journey." The queen dressed up the cook's son, and she gave him to the giant by the hand. The giant went away with him, but he had not gone far when he put a rod in the hand of the little laddie. The giant asked him, "If thy father had that rod, what would he do with it?" "If my father had that rod, he would beat the dogs and the cats so that they shouldn't be going near the king's meat," said the little laddie. "Thou'rt the cook's son," said the giant. He catches him by the 2 small ankles and knocks him against the stone that was beside him. The giant turned back to the castle in rage and madness, and he said that if they did not send out the king's son to him, the highest stone of the castle would be the lowest. Said the queen to the king, "We'll try it yet. The butler's son is of the same age as our son." She dressed up the butler's son, and she gives him to the giant by the hand. The giant had not gone far when he put the rod in his hand. "If thy father had that rod," says the giant, "what would he do with it?" "He would beat the dogs and the cats when they would be coming near the king's bottles and glasses." "Thou art the son of the butler," says the giant, and dashed his brains out too. The giant returned in a very great rage and anger. The earth shook under the sole of his feet, and the castle shook and all that was in it. "Out here with thy son," says the giant, "or in a twinkling the stone that is highest in the dwelling will be the lowest." So they had to give the king's son to the giant. When they were gone a little bit from the earth, the giant showed him the rod that was in his hand and said, "What would thy father do with this rod if he had it?" The king's son said, "My father has a braver rod than that." And the giant asked him, "Where is thy father when he has that brave rod?" And the king's son said, "He will be sitting in his kingly chair." Then the giant understood that he had the right one. The giant took him to his own house, and he reared him as his own son. On a day of days when the giant was from home, the lad heard the sweetest music he ever heard in a room at the top of the giant's house. At a glance he saw the finest face he had ever seen. She beckoned to him to come a bit nearer to her, and she said her name was Auburn Mary, but she told him to go this time, but to be sure to be at the same place about that dead midnight. And as he promised he did. The giant's daughter was at his side in a twinkling, and she said, "Tomorrow you will get the choice of my 2 sisters to marry, but say that you will not take either but me. My father wants me to marry the son of the king of the Green City, but I don't like him." On the morrow the giant took out his 3 daughters, and he said, Now, son of the king of Tethertown, thou hast not lost by living with me so long. Thou wilt get to wife one of the two eldest of my daughters, and with her leave to go home with her the day after the wedding. If you will give me this pretty little one, says the king's son, I will take you at your word. The giant's wrath kindled, and he said, Before thou gett'st her, thou must do the three things that I ask thee to do. Say on, says the king's son. The giant took him to the byre. Now, says the giant, 100 cattle are stabled here, and it has not been cleansed for 7 years. I am going from home today, and if this byre is not cleaned before night comes, so clean that a golden apple will run from end to end of it, not only thou shalt not get my daughter, but it is only a drink of thy fresh, goodly, beautiful blood that will quench my thirst this night. He begins cleaning the byre, but he might just as well to keep bailing the great ocean. After midday, when sweat was blinding him, the giant's youngest daughter came where he was, and she said to him, You are being punished, king's son. I am that, says the king's son. Come over, says Auburn Mary, and lay down your weariness. I will do that, says he. There is but death awaiting me at any rate. He sat down near her. He was so tired that he fell asleep beside her. When he awoke, the giant's daughter was not to be seen, but the byre was so well cleaned that a golden apple would run from end to end of it, and raise no stain. In comes the giant, and he said, Hast thou cleaned the byre, king's son? I have cleaned it, says he. Somebody cleaned it, says the giant. You did not clean it at all events, said the king's son. Well, well, says the giant. Since thou wert so active today, thou wilt get to this time tomorrow to thatch this byre with birds down, from birds with no two feathers of one color. The king's son was on foot before the sun. He caught up his bow and his quiver of arrows to kill the birds. He took to the moors, but if he did, the birds were not so easy to take. He was running after them till the sweat was blinding him. About midday, who should come but Auburn Mary? You are exhausting yourself, king's son, says she. I am, said he. There fell but these two blackbirds, and both of one color. Come over and lay down your weariness on this pretty hillock, says the giant's daughter. It's I am willing, said he. He thought she would aid him this time too, and he sat down near her, and he was not long there till he fell asleep. When he awoke, Auburn Mary was gone. He thought he would go back to the house, and he sees the byre thatched with feathers. When the giant came home, he said, Hast thou thatched the byre, king's son? I thatched it, says he. Somebody thatched it, says the giant. You did not thatch it, says the king's son. Yes, yes, says the giant. Now, says the giant, there is a fir tree beside that lock down there, and there is a magpie's nest in its top. The eggs thou wilt find in the nest. I must have them for my first meal. Not one must be burst or broken, and there are 5 in the nest. Early in the morning, the king's son went where the tree was, and that tree was not hard to hit upon. Its match was not in the whole wood. From the foot to the first branch was 500 feet. The king's son was going all round the tree. She came who was always bringing help to him. You are losing the skin of your hands and feet. Och, I am, says he. I am no sooner up than down." "This is no time for stopping," says the giant's daughter. "Now you must kill me, strip the flesh from my bones, take all those bones apart, and use them as steps for climbing the tree. When you are climbing the tree, they will stick to the glass as if they had grown out of it. But when you are coming down and have put your foot on each one, they will drop into your hand when you touch them. Be sure and stand on each bone. Leave none untouched. If you do, it will stay behind. Put all my flesh into this clean cloth by the side of the spring at the roots of the tree. When you come to the earth, arrange my bones together, put the flesh over them, sprinkle it with water from the spring, and I shall be alive before you. But don't forget a bone of me on the tree." "How could I kill you," asked the king's son, "after what you have done for me?" "If you won't obey, you and I are done for," said Auburn Mary. "You must climb the tree, or we are lost, and to climb the tree, you must do as I say." The king's son obeyed. He killed Auburn Mary, cut the flesh from her body, and unjointed the bones as she had told him. As he went up, the king's son put the bones of Auburn Mary's body against the side of the tree, using them as steps, till he came under the nest and stood on the last bone. Then he took the eggs, and coming down, put his foot on every bone, then took it with him, till he came to the last bone, which was so near the ground that he failed to touch it with his foot. He now placed all the bones of Auburn Mary in order again at the side of the spring, put the flesh on them, sprinkled it with water from the spring. She rose up before him and said, "Didn't I tell you not to leave a bone of my body without stepping on it? Now I am lame for life. You left my little finger on the tree without touching it, and I have but 9 fingers. Now," says she, "go home with the eggs quickly, and you will get me to marry tonight if you can know me. I and my 2 sisters will be arrayed in the same garments and made like each other. But look at me when my father says, 'Go to thy wife, king's son,' and you will see a hand without a little finger." He gave the eggs to the giant. "Yes, yes," says the giant, "be making ready for your marriage." Then indeed there was a wedding, and it was a wedding. Giants and gentlemen, and the son of the king of the green city was in the midst of them. They were married, and the dancing began. That was a dance. The giant's house was shaking from top to bottom. But bedtime came, and the giant said, "It is time for thee to go to rest, son of the king of Tethertown. Choose thy bride to take with thee from amidst those." She put out the hand off which the little finger was, and he caught her by the hand. "Thou hast aimed well this time too, but there is no knowing but we may meet thee another way," said the giant. But to rest they went. "Now," says she, "sleep not, or else you are a dead man. We must fly quick, quick, or for certain my father will kill you." Out they went, and on the blue-gray filly in the stable they mounted. "Stop a while," says she, "and I will play a trick to the old hero." She jumped in and cut an apple into 9 shares, and she put 2 shares at the head of the bed, and 2 shares at the foot of the bed, and 2 shares at the door of the kitchen, and 2 shares at the big door, and 1 outside the house. The giant awoke and called, "Are you asleep?" "Not yet," said the apple that was at the head of the bed. At the end of a while he called again, "Not yet," said the apple that was at the foot of the bed. A while after this he called again, "Are you asleep?" "Not yet," said the apple at the kitchen door. The giant called again. The apple that was at the big door answered, "You are now going far from me," says the giant. "Not yet," says the apple that was outside the house. "You are flying," says the giant. The giant jumped on his feet, and to the bed he went, but it was cold, empty. "My own daughter's tricks are trying me," said the giant. "Here's after them," says he. At the mouth of day, the giant's daughter said that her father's breath was burning her back. "Put your hand, quick," said she, "in the ear of the gray filly, and whatever you find in it, throw it behind us." "There is a twig of sloe tree," said he. "Throw it behind us," said she. No sooner did he that than there were 20 miles of blackthorn wood, so thick that scarce a weasel could go through it. The giant came headlong, and there he is, fleecing his head and neck in the thorns. "My own daughter's tricks are here as before," said the giant, "but if I had my own big axe and wood knife here, I would not be long making a way through this." He went home for the big axe and the wood knife, and sure he was not long on his journey, and he was the boy behind the big axe. He was not long making a way through the blackthorn. "I will leave the axe and the wood knife here till I return," says he. "If you leave 'em," said a hoodie that was in a tree. "We'll steal 'em, steal 'em." "If you will do that," says the giant, "I must take them home." He returned home and left them at the house. At the heat of day, the giant's daughter felt her father's breath burning her back. "Put your finger in the filly's ear and throw behind whatever you find in it." He got a splinter of gray stone, and in a twinkling there were 20 miles by breadth and height of great gray rock behind them. The giant came full pelt, but past the rock he could not go. "The tricks of my own daughter are the hardest things that ever met me," says the giant, "but if I had my lever and my mighty mattock, I would not be long in making my way through this rock also." There was no help for it but to turn the chase for them, and he was the boy to split the stones. He was not long in making a road through the rock. "I will leave the tools here, and I will return no more." "If you leave 'em, says the hoodie. "We will steal 'em, steal 'em." "Do that if you will. There is no time to go back." At the time of breaking the watch, the giant's daughter said that she felt her father's breath burning her back. "Look in the filly's ear, king's son, or else we are lost." He did so, and it was a bladder of water that was in her ear this time. He threw it behind him, and there was a fresh water lock, 20 miles in length and breadth, behind them. The giant came on, but with the speed he had on him, he was in the middle of the lock, and he went under, and he rose no more. On the next day the young companions were come in sight of his father's house. "Now," says she, "my father is drowned, and he won't trouble us any more. But before we go further," says she, "go you to your father's house, and tell that you have the likes of me. But let neither man nor creature kiss you, for if you do, you will not remember that you have ever seen me." Everyone he met gave him welcome and luck, and he charged his father and mother not to kiss him. But as mishap was to be, an old greyhound was indoors, and she knew him, and jumped up to his mouth, and after that he did not remember the giant's daughter. She was sitting at the well's side as he left her, but the king's son was not coming. In the mouth of night she climbed up into a tree of oak that was beside the well, and she lay in the fork of that tree all night. A shoemaker had a house near the well, and about midday on the morrow the shoemaker asked his wife to go for a drink for him out of the well. When the shoemaker's wife reached the well, and when she saw the shadow of her that was in the tree, thinking it was her own shadow, and she never thought till now that she was so handsome, she gave a cast to the dish that was in her hand, and it was broken on the ground, and she took herself to the house without vessel or water. "Where is the water, wife?" said the shoemaker. "You shambling, contemptible old carles, without grace. I have stayed too long your water and wood thrall. I think, wife, that you have turned crazy. Go you, daughter, quickly, and fetch a drink for your father." His daughter went, and in the same way so it happened to her. She never thought till now that she was so lovable, and she took herself home. "Up with the drink," said her father, "you homespun shoe carly. Do you think I am fit to be your thrall?" The poor shoemaker thought that they had taken a turn in their understandings, and he went himself to the well. He saw the shadow of the maiden in the well, and he looked up to the tree, and he sees the finest woman he ever saw. "Your seat is wavering, but your face is fair," said the shoemaker. "Come down, for there is need of you for a short while at my house." The shoemaker understood that this was the shadow that had driven his people mad. The shoemaker took her to his house, and he said that he had but a poor bothy, but that she should get a share of all that was in it. One day the shoemaker had shoes ready, for on that very day the king's son was to be married. The shoemaker was going to the castle with the shoes of the young people, and the girl said to the shoemaker, "I would like to get a sight of the king's son before he marries." "Come with me," says the shoemaker. "I am well acquainted with the servants at the castle, and you shall get a sight of the king's son and all the company." And when the gentles saw the pretty woman that was here, they took her to the wedding room, and they filled for her a glass of wine. When she was going to drink what is in it, a flame went up out of the glass, and a golden pigeon and a silver pigeon sprang out of it. They were flying about when 3 grains of barley fell on the floor. The silver pigeon sprung and ate that up. Said the golden pigeon to him, "If you remembered when I cleared the byre, you would not eat that without giving me a share." Again there fell 3 other grains of barley, and the silver pigeon sprung and ate that up as before. "If you remembered when I thatched the byre, you would not eat that without giving me my share," says the golden pigeon. 3 other grains fall, and the silver pigeon sprung and ate that up. "If you remembered when I harried the magpie's nest, you would not eat that without giving me my share," says the golden pigeon. "I lost my little finger bringing it down, and I want it still." The king's son minded, and he knew who it was that was before him. "Well," said the king's son to the guests at the feast, "when I was a little younger than I am now, I lost the key of a casket that I had. I had a new key made, but after it was brought to me, I found the old one. Now I'll leave it to anyone here to tell me what I am to do. Which of the keys should I keep? My advice to you, said one of the guests, is to keep the old key, for it fits the lock better and you're more used to it. Then the king's son stood up and said, I thank you for a wise advice and an honest word. This is my bride, the daughter of the giant, who saved my life at the risk of her own. I'll have her and no other woman. So the king's son married Auburn Mary, and the wedding lasted long and all were happy. But all I got was butter on a live coal, porridge in a basket, and they sent me for water to the stream, and the paper shoes came to an end. Fair, Brown, and Trembling. King Hugh Carucha lived in Tir Connell, and he had 3 daughters, whose names were Fair, Brown, and Trembling. Fair and Brown had new dresses and went to church every Sunday. Trembling was kept at home to do the cooking and work. They would not let her go out of the house at all, for she was more beautiful than the other 2, and they were in dread she might marry before themselves. They carried on in this way for 7 years. At the end of 7 years, the son of the king of Emania fell in love with the eldest sister. One Sunday morning, after the other 2 had gone to church, the old henwife came into the kitchen to Trembling and said, It's at church you ought to be this day, instead of working here at home. How could I go? Said Trembling. I have no clothes good enough to wear at church, and if my sisters were to see me there, they'd kill me for going out of the house. I'll give you, said the henwife, a finer dress than either of them has ever seen. And now tell me, what dress will you have? I'll have, said Trembling, a dress as white as snow, and green shoes for my feet. Then the henwife put on the cloak of darkness, clipped a piece from the old clothes the young woman had on, and asked for the whitest robes in the world, and the most beautiful that could be found, and a pair of green shoes. That moment she had the robe and the shoes, and she brought them to Trembling, who put them on. When Trembling was dressed and ready, the henwife said, I have a honey bird here to sit on your right shoulder, and a honey finger to put on your left. At the door stands a milk-white mare, with a golden saddle for you to sit on, and a golden bridle to hold in your hand. Trembling sat on the golden saddle, and when she was ready to start, the henwife said, You must not go inside the door of the church, and the minute the people rise up at the end of Mass, do you make off and ride home as fast as the mare will carry you. When Trembling came to the door of the church, there was no one inside who could get a glimpse of her, but was striving to know who she was. And when they saw her hurrying away at the end of Mass, they ran out to overtake her. But no use in their running. She was away before any man could come near her. From the minute she left the church till she got home, she overtook the wind before her and outstripped the wind behind. She came down at the door, went in, and found the henwife had dinner ready. She put off the white robes and had on her old dress in a twinkling. When the 2 sisters came home, the henwife asked, Have you any news today from the church? We have great news, said they. We saw a wonderful grand lady at the church door. The like of the robes she had, we have never seen on woman before. It's little that was thought of our dresses beside what she had on, and there wasn't a man at the church, from the king to the beggar, but was trying to look at her and know who she was. The sisters would give no peace till they had two dresses, like the robes of the strange lady. But honey birds and honey fingers were not to be found. Next Sunday, the two sisters went to church again and left the youngest at home to cook the dinner. After they had gone, the henwife came in and asked, "Will you go to church today?" "I would go," said Trembling, "if I could get the going." "What robe will you wear?" asked the henwife. "The finest black satin that can be found, and red shoes for my feet." "What color do you want the mare to be?" "I want her to be so black and so glossy that I can see myself in her body." The henwife put on the cloak of darkness and asked for the robes and the mare. That moment she had them. When Trembling was dressed, the henwife put the honey bird on her right shoulder and the honey finger on her left. The saddle on the mare was silver, and so was the bridle. When Trembling sat in the saddle and was going away, the henwife ordered her strictly not to go inside the door of the church, but to rush away as soon as the people rose at the end of Mass, and hurry home on the mare before any man could stop her. That Sunday, the people were more astonished than ever, and gazed at her more than the first time, and all they were thinking of was to know who she was. But they had no chance, for the moment the people rose at the end of Mass, she slipped from the church, was in the silver saddle, and home before a man could stop her or talk to her. The henwife had the dinner ready. Trembling took off her satin robe and had on her old clothes before her sisters got home. "What news have you today?" asked the henwife of the sisters when they came from the church. "Oh, we saw the grand strange lady again, and it's little that any man could think of our dresses after looking at the robes of satin that she had on. And all at church, from high to low, had their mouths open gazing at her, and no man was looking at us." The two sisters gave neither rest nor peace till they got dresses as nearly like the strange lady's robes as they could find. Of course they were not so good, for the like of those robes could not be found in Erin. When the third Sunday came, Fair and Brown went to church dressed in black satin. They left Trembling at home to work in the kitchen, and told her to be sure and have dinner ready when they came back. After they had gone and were out of sight, the henwife came to the kitchen and said, "Well, my dear, are you for church today?" "I would go if I had a new dress to wear." "I'll get you any dress you ask for. What dress would you like?" asked the henwife. "A dress red as a rose from the waist down, and white as snow from the waist up, a cape of green on my shoulders, and a hat on my head with a red, a white, and a green feather in it, and shoes for my feet with the toes red, the middle white, and the backs and heels green." The henwife put on the cloak of darkness, wished for all these things, and had them. When Trembling was dressed, the henwife put the honey bird on her right shoulder and the honey finger on her left, and placing the hat on her head, clipped a few hairs from one lock and a few from another with her scissors. And that moment the most beautiful golden hair was flowing down over the girl's shoulders. Then the henwife asked what kind of a mare she would ride. She said white, with blue and gold-colored diamond-shaped spots all over her body, on her back a saddle of gold, and on her head a golden bridle. The mare stood there before the door, and a bird sitting between her ears, which began to sing as soon as Trembling was in the saddle, and never stopped till she came home from the church. The fame of the beautiful strange lady had gone out through the world, and all the princes and great men that were in it came to church that Sunday, each one hoping that it was himself would have her home with him after Mass. The son of the king of Emania forgot all about the eldest sister and remained outside the church so as to catch the strange lady before she could hurry away. The church was more crowded than ever before, and there were 3 times as many outside. There was such a throng before the church that Trembling could only come inside the gate. As soon as the people were rising at the end of Mass, the lady slipped out through the gate, was in the golden saddle in an instant, and sweeping away ahead of the wind. But if she was, the Prince of Emania was at her side, and seizing her by the foot, he ran with the mare for 30 perches, and never let go of the beautiful lady till the shoe was pulled from her foot, and he was left behind with it in his hand. She came home as fast as the mare could carry her, and was thinking all the time that the henwife would kill her for losing the shoe. Seeing her so vexed and so changed in the face, the old woman asked, "What's the trouble that's on you now?" "Oh, I've lost one of the shoes off my feet," said Trembling. "Don't mind that. Don't be vexed," said the henwife. "Maybe it's the best thing that ever happened to you." Then Trembling gave up all the things she had to the henwife, put on her old clothes, and went to work in the kitchen. When the sisters came home, the henwife asked, "Have you any news from the church?" "We have indeed," said they, "for we saw the grandest sight today. The strange lady came again, in grander array than before. On herself and the horse she rode were the finest colors of the world, and between the ears of the horse was a bird which never stopped singing from the time she came till she went away. The lady herself is the most beautiful woman ever seen by man in Erin." After Trembling had disappeared from the church, the son of the king of Emania said to the other kings' sons, "I will have that lady for my own." They all said, "You didn't win her just by taking the shoe off her foot. You'll have to win her by the point of the sword. You'll have to fight for her with us before you can call her your own." "Well," said the son of the king of Emania, "when I find the lady that shoe will fit, I'll fight for her, never fear, before I leave her to any of you." Then all the king's sons were uneasy, and anxious to know who was she that lost the shoe, and they began to travel all over Erin to know could they find her. The Prince of Emania and all the others went in a great company together, and made the round of Erin. They went everywhere, north, south, east, and west. They visited every place where a woman was to be found, and left not a house in the kingdom they did not search, to know could they find the woman the shoe would fit, not caring whether she was rich or poor, of high or low degree. The Prince of Emania always kept the shoe, and when the young women saw it, they had great hopes, for it was of proper size, neither large nor small, and it would beat any man to know of what material it was made. One thought it would fit her, if she cut a little from her great toe, and another, with too short a foot, put something in the tip of her stocking. But no use, they only spoiled their feet, and were curing them for months afterwards. The 2 sisters, Fair and Brown, heard that the princes of the world were looking all over Erin for the woman that could wear the shoe, and every day they were talking of trying it on. And one day Trembling spoke up and said, "Maybe it's my foot that the shoe will fit." "Oh, the breaking of the dog's foot on you. Why say so when you were at home every Sunday?" They were that way waiting and scolding the younger sister till the princes were near the place. The day they were to come, the sisters put Trembling in a closet and locked the door on her. When the company came to the house, the Prince of Emania gave the shoe to the sisters. But though they tried and tried, it would fit neither of them. "Is there any other young woman in the house?" asked the prince. "There is," said Trembling, speaking up in the closet. "I'm here." "Oh, we have her for nothing but to put out the ashes," said the sisters. But the prince and the others wouldn't leave the house till they had seen her, so the two sisters had to open the door. When Trembling came out, the shoe was given to her, and it fitted exactly. The Prince of Emania looked at her and said, "You are the woman the shoe fits, and you are the woman I took the shoe from." Then Trembling spoke up and said, "Do you stay here till I return?" Then she went to the henwife's house. The old woman put on the cloak of darkness, got everything for her she had the first Sunday at church, and put her on the white mare in the same fashion. Then Trembling rode along the highway to the front of the house. All who saw her the first time said, "This is the lady we saw at church." Then she went away a second time, and a second time came back on the black mare in the second dress which the henwife gave her. All who saw her the second Sunday said, "That is the lady we saw at church." A third time she asked for a short absence, and soon came back on the third mare and in the third dress. All who saw her the third time said, "That is the lady we saw at church." Every man was satisfied and knew that she was the woman. Then all the princes and great men spoke up and said to the son of the king of Emania, "You'll have to fight now for her before we let her go with you." "I'm here before you, ready for combat," answered the prince. Then the son of the king of Lochlin stepped forth. The struggle began, and a terrible struggle it was. They fought for 9 hours, and then the son of the king of Lochlin stopped, gave up his claim, and left the field. Next day the son of the king of Spain fought 6 hours and yielded his claim. On the third day the son of the king of Nairfoy fought 8 hours and stopped. The fourth day the son of the king of Greece fought 6 hours and stopped. On the fifth day no more strange princes wanted to fight, and all the sons of kings in Erin said they would not fight with a man of their own land, that the strangers had had their chance, and, as no others came to claim the woman, she belonged of right to the son of the king of Emania. The marriage day was fixed, and the invitations were sent out. The wedding lasted for a year and a day. When the wedding was over, the king's son brought home the bride, and when the time came, a son was born. The young woman sent for her eldest sister, Fair, to be with her and care for her. One day, when Trembling was well, and when her husband was away hunting, the two sisters went out to walk. And when they came to the seaside, the eldest pushed the youngest sister in. A great whale came and swallowed her. The eldest sister came home alone, and the husband asked, "Where is your sister?" "She has gone home to her father in Ballyshannon. Now that I am well, I don't need her." "Well," said the husband, looking at her, "I'm in dread it's my wife that has gone." "Oh no," said she, "it's my sister fair that's gone." Since the sisters were very much alike, the prince was in doubt. That night he put his sword between them and said, "If you are my wife, this sword will get warm. If not, it will stay cold." In the morning, when he rose up, the sword was as cold as when he put it there. It happened, when the two sisters were walking by the seashore, that a little cowboy was down by the water minding cattle, and saw Fair push Trembling into the sea. And next day, when the tide came in, he saw the whale swim up and throw her out on the sand. When she was on the sand, she said to the cowboy, "When you go home in the evening with the cows, tell the master that my sister Fair pushed me into the sea yesterday, that a whale swallowed me and then threw me out, but will come again and swallow me with the coming of the next tide. Then he'll go out with the tide and come again with tomorrow's tide and throw me again on the strand. The whale will cast me out 3 times. I'm under the enchantment of this whale and cannot leave the beach or escape myself. Unless my husband saves me before I'm swallowed the 4th time, I shall be lost. He must come and shoot the whale with a silver bullet when he turns on the broad of his back. Under the breast fin of the whale is a reddish-brown spot. My husband must hit him in that spot, for it is the only place in which he can be killed." When the cowboy got home, the eldest sister gave him a draught of oblivion, and he did not tell. Next day he went again to the sea. The whale came and cast Trembling on shore again. She asked the boy, "Did you tell the master what I told you to tell him?" "I did not," said he. "I forgot." "How did you forget?" asked she. "The woman of the house gave me a drink that made me forget." "Well, don't forget telling him this night, and if she gives you a drink, don't take it from her." As soon as the cowboy came home, the eldest sister offered him a drink. He refused to take it till he had delivered his message and told all to the master. The 3rd day, the prince went down with his gun and a silver bullet in it. He was not long down when the whale came and threw Trembling upon the beach as the 2 days before. She had no power to speak to her husband till he had killed the whale. Then the whale went out, turned over once on the broad of his back, and showed the spot for a moment only. That moment the prince fired. He had but the one chance, and a short one at that, but he took it and hit the spot, and the whale, mad with pain, made the sea all around red with blood, and died. That minute Trembling was able to speak, and went home with her husband, who sent word to her father what the eldest sister had done. The father came and told him any death he chose to give her, to give it. The prince told the father he would leave her life and death with himself. The father had her put out then on the sea in a barrel, with provisions in it for 7 years. In time, Trembling had a second child, a daughter. The prince and she sent the cowboy to school, and trained him up as one of their own children, and said, "If the little girl that is born to us now lives, no other man in the world will get her but him." The cowboy and the prince's daughter lived on till they were married. The mother said to her husband, "You could not have saved me from the whale, but for the little cowboy. On that account, I don't grudge him my daughter." The son of the king of Emania and Trembling had 14 children, and they lived happily till the two died of old age.